Welcome back to the She Decides podcast, where we celebrate women's success and the power of intentional leadership. I'm your host, Stacy Swiderski, joined by my incredible co-host, Michelle Carr. In this empowering episode, we sit down with Andrea De La Cerda, a communications expert and transformational change agent with over 25 years of experience in advertising, marketing, and organizational design. Andrea has led some of the world's most influential brands and agencies, and now she's channeling her expertise to uplift underserved communities, from rural farm workers to justice-involved individuals. But her evolution goes far beyond the boardroom. Andrea opens up about the deeply personal moments that inspired her to prioritize mental health, healing, and inner alignment. From building scalable impact through strategy to embracing meditation and mindful living, she's redefined success on her own terms. This episode is a powerful reminder of what's possible when we choose alignment in business, in service, and in self. If you've ever needed permission to slow down, tune in, and rewrite your story, Andrea's journey will speak directly to your soul, because when she decides, anything is possible. So welcome everybody to our next episode of She Decides. I'm really thrilled to speak and with our guest today and have Andrea with us. And of course, Michelle's back, our guest
Hi, everyone.
host. So again, this is going to be a really empowering episode for all those ladies out there watching. And let's jump in. So Andrea, would you mind just introducing yourself?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, by the way. It's really fun to be with you ladies. And I love the pink microphones, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
They're fun.
On point.
Yes. Pink is our color.
My name is Andrea De La Cerda, and I own an organization, a consultancy called the Clover Agency. I own a second business called Candula Communications, which is a strategic communications company. And we're doing there's a lot that both companies are doing, and I'm a visionary. So when I get a good idea, I tend to latch onto it and launch something new. So, we'll see where I end up at the end of the year, but we do have a couple of new ventures even in the works. So it keeps us all very busy, but it's really very fun. There's nothing else I would rather do. Never go back to work for someone else ever.
Oh, I love
it. Exactly.
Yes, I hear you on that one. And I actually did a post the other day about just not waiting for perfection. And clearly you were living that as well. Like, you have a vision and you're like, let's do it. So, with that, I have a question that of course, everybody's going to want to know is what inspired you to launch the Clover Agency? And just, really, what was your determination behind that?
Well, I wish I could say that I was out to change the world and, one company at a time, but really at the time I had little ones at home, and I was newly married, but I had been a single mom prior to that. So I needing to make money, but I needed a level of flexibility so that I could spend time with my kids. They were going through a lot of transition, and I was sensitive to where they were at emotionally and mentally, and also myself. And going to at the time, I mean, this was 2012, 2011.
And how many kids did you have? Two.
Three? Two at the time. Yes. So then I got remarried, and then my husband had two more. So we were a nice Brady Bunch family.
You're like a Brady Bunch.
Yeah. But at the time I was just really sensitive to what their needs were. But at the same time, I needed to make money. I had a professional career that I was still interested in picking up and taking off. I didn't want to let that go, and utilize my education. So I felt like this would offer me the flexibility if I could do my own thing, pick my own projects, pick the people that I'm working with. I mean, what's better than that? It really just was
it's like the American
solution.
Dream.
It is a perfect situation.
But then terrifying also, right, at the time, because I never pictured myself as a business owner, not somebody that would own a consultancy like this. This felt like really legit, really grown up, really adult
Right.
decision.
Like, I have a big girl role here.
And it just felt above me, somehow a little bit unreachable. In a way, I think that drove me to see if I could do it. And inside, part of it was terrifying at the same time.
I love this message because I feel that this is really the inspiration of our podcast, is giving our listeners just that little bit of glimpse or hope into like, listen, this is realistic. And so hearing your story, I guarantee it's
Perfect.
gonna,
Right.
inspire so many people. So yeah, let's go on. I want to hear more about this.
Yeah, well, and so at the time, virtual work was very few and far between, and were not a lot of jobs that moms really could do from home virtually. It's very different now, thankfully. At the
Right.
time, I had to get really creative. If I wanted to work for someone else, none of that was really working out. So I started, my husband, we had just married, he was very supportive. Thankfully, I think if I didn't have his support and encouragement, there's no way. I don't think that I would have had the courage within myself
Sure.
to actually do it. I would have talked about it for many months or
It would have
years.
been a dream, but
Right. Uh-huh. What if I had done that?
what
Yeah.
if, yeah. Yeah.
But
So
so
definitely
I'm
having
thankful
that
for him.
support and that positivity to give you that push clearly made all the difference.
So tell us a little bit about the Clover Agency and what gap were you trying to fill in launching that?
When I launched it, my background was in communications and marketing. So it was really centered around working for purpose-driven organizations, mission-driven organizations that wanted to utilize strategic communications in a way to help, further their mission. And that was really the focus. However, we did a relaunch and a bit of a rebrand in 2023 when my husband came into the business full time. When he came into the business full time with a background that was slightly different than mine, that's when we made kind of a strategic decision to shift the Clover Agency's consultancy offerings into more that would align more with his experience. And then I spun off a new organization called Candula Communications, which is really centered around my expertise. So it was a way for us we felt if we offered all of this in one company, it was a little confusing to the market because there weren't a lot of, it was a little more challenging for, to get people to understand who we are and what we do and who we serve. So it was a strategic reason we spun out of that second company. But the Clover Agency is a consultancy, and we are funded through some grants, state and federal grants, and also, privately funded as well. But we work workforce development initiatives that help the underserved population. So we specifically right now are focusing on an interesting project up in Sacramento, California, where we are serving the formerly incarcerated. So many come out of incarceration and they need that help and case management support in order to land a livable wage job. So we help them get connected to also the resources that they need in order to do that. Things like housing, transportation, um, food and food insecurities, and all of these are issues. Lack of housing, food insecurity, things like that
Sure,
are
yeah.
reasons why people don't keep jobs and
Right.
might reoffend and go back. And I think that's what we all want to help these individuals get placed in jobs permanently so they don't have to reoffend.
That is so neat.
Yeah,
It's like giving them a platform to really like a launch, like to help them into the workforce. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I wasn't expecting that to be what you were doing. I had a whole different idea of what your company did. So, so that's very different than what the Clover Agency does, correct?
So the Clover Agency has created a logic model, which is basically when we go after grants, we created a linear logic model. It's nothing really earth-shattering, but the way that we write grants follows this logic model, which has been funded now several times. So it's certainly something that we believe we're proving it out. So in the beginning, it was a bit of a theory. We're proving it out, and not just in communities in Sacramento, like the one that I mentioned, but also other underserved communities like the farm working community, refugees, ESL, veterans, those with disabilities. There's a lot of opportunity to serve the underserved when it comes to workforce. And we all know that, for many years, we've been hearing changes happening in the workforce, people needing jobs, and yet employers saying they're not able to find skilled workers. So there seems to be a bit of a gap. And a lot of this effort around workforce development and continuing that the thought leadership that we're doing is really meant to help move the needle, help close some of these skills gaps so that it improves our communities.
So how are you how can you be at two places at once? How are you juggling that? And like,
It's
what
a
place?
lot.
It's a lot. And like, where does your husband fit in? Like, do you guys work together or do you kind of branch off and you're like, this is your side, this is mine, and this is what I'm really good at, this is what you're good at, we meet in the middle? Or tell
It's
us more
a
about
great
that.
question. It can be challenging for sure.
I
So
bet.
yeah, so I'm of course over both companies. The way that works,
Because
because
you're
can't
CEO of both,
right,
correct? Okay.
correct. And we do have two very strong teams, right? So we have growing teams who are doing, they have specific roles to play in what we offer, and they work in very hard. And we're very lucky to have two fantastic teams. My day is definitely divided between the two. On the Clover side, Clover agency, my husband does work in that company, and he's the head of our business development efforts. So he really is focused on sales, networking, grant writing, those types of things, bringing in the revenue. Whereas our team of case managers and those program coordinators are really making sure that the operations is all, above board, and that we're serving the clients in the best way we can. Candula is a bit of a channel strategy because all of this great work that Clover is doing, Candula does step in on a project by project basis and help to support them in amplifying the success metrics, right? Making sure that the communities understand how these funds are being used, and all of the great work that we're doing as a result of it. So that Candula does step in. So the two organizations at times do work hand in hand.
Yeah.
The teams work together. But Candula is also involved in a lot of other initiatives that Clover isn't. And my role at Candula is like, I feel like it's a bit my baby, right? That's my background, communications. I mean, I'm a communicator.
You're
Yeah,
like, yeah, that's
it's
definitely
fun. It's fun. And really we're expanding into thinking about how to leverage some of my experience as an entrepreneur, as a woman, and as a mother, and all the things that you both know what I'm talking about when it comes to the challenges that we have to face. I really like you're doing, talking about that and helping to empower other women. So that's a new initiative that we're taking on that has been really fulfilling. That is filling a place in my heart that I didn't know I needed to
Oh,
fill,
I
but
love
it's
that. I love that.
wonderful.
You spoke about just, of course, how we know the workforce is so different nowadays than what it was even 5 years ago, right? So how do you ensure that like the training programs that you help develop really align with the workforce needs today?
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great question. We do a lot of networking within the workforce world. Our our ecosystem is pretty centered on California right now, and California in and of itself is, it's a bit of an animal when it comes to really understanding who all the players are and what the leadership looks like in workforce. But we
Sure.
are connected with many of the workforce development boards. We attend many of the conferences. We do our own labor market data and follow the data in terms of what sectors are really going to be in demand, not just today, but 12 months from now, 18 months, 5 years from now. So we're planning ahead and thinking strategically about those types of employer connections. When it comes to connecting underserved or any individual to
Mm-hmm.
workforce, the key is really having those strong employer partners. And that's where we spend a lot of our time, is thinking about where those opportunities are going to be in the future, and then really making sure that we have some tight relationships with employers so that we understand how they work. We understand what their needs are, what their turnover looks like, what does their pipelines need to be in order to make sure that they have enough staff. So we are in collaboration with them, and even at the policy level in Sacramento and also at DC, because a lot of times policy can impact
Oh,
workforce
for
very
sure.
directly.
Yeah, the policy. Yeah.
Right.
And, really, because it's a service, based organization, you don't have a product, right? So it's more that is your product. So we just don't know what people are going to end up, what is the end result going to be, right? So definitely there's probably only so much research you can do, right? Until
Oh
I
yeah,
would think,
there's a lot of variables too,
yes,
right?
yes.
It's one thing to kind of understand the labor market data, but it's another thing, different employers function very differently when it comes to workforce and the way they hire. We
And
are
there's only so
leaning,
much control you have, right? To a
yeah,
point, yes.
and there are some new trends. I mean, we're seeing organizations, or even at the state and federal level when it comes to funding, really leaning into apprenticeship opportunities, growing apprenticeships, both pre-apprenticeships and regular apprenticeships. And that's an area that we're able to serve as well. So as that funding becomes available and it's offered to employers, they're going to need that assistance and the connection to those employer partners to be able to build those registered apprenticeships. And we support with that as well.
So can you think of a partnership that you have that's had a lasting impact on you?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, that's a really
I'm
good
sure
question.
there's several, but especially in what you're doing, but is there one that stands out?
I really think the work that we're doing right now in Sacramento is so incredible. I've had the opportunity to go up to Sacramento a few times while we've been building these cohorts of students as they come out of incarceration. We put them together in a cohort where they learn. There's an 8-week course. They learn about, they gain job skills, they gain soft skills. We talk a lot about things that they need to, that maybe they haven't thought about, that they need to get together. Like sometimes they come out and they don't have a driver's license. You know, getting
like
them
the basics that we take advantage of every day.
Basics and things like if they don't have long-term housing, making sure where they're connected to organizations that can help them. So there's a lot of ways that we provide support within that 8 weeks. And I've been able to go up and see them, and we have conversations and we talk about how they're doing, and they're just so inspiring and so excited to have a second chance at life. And the way that they talk about how, you know, if I had known then what I know now, I would have done things so differently. And just the way that they so candidly talk about mistakes that they've made and how they've overcome and moved past them is really incredible. It's really incredible because when you think about it, I mean, sadly, but any one of us are one poor decision away from.
Exactly.
I was just going to say that none of us are perfect. We've all made mistakes in life, right? It's just a matter of, you just never know, you know? And
Right.
so to be able to give in that second chance has to be
a second chance and have some guidance
and
as
have
well,
the support
instead of just, you know,
Exactly.
go figure it out. Yeah, I like what you're doing with that.
How do you help organizations like embrace the change before they're forced into it, if that makes sense?
Yeah, this is the change management work that we do, which is
there's gotta
really
be
important. Yeah, it's depends on the level of change, the size of the organization. It can depend on a lot of those factors, but the key is executive alignment at the top for agreement around the change that needs to be made. And that seems simple, but
no, I can imagine. Yeah. And it always has to start at the top, right?
Right.
Because you have to
yes.
enforce that, right? For sure. So, wow.
So it's difficult to take on a project if there isn't that alignment at the top in the C-suite. But when there is, then it becomes a matter of, that's when communications is really the engine to help fuel that change. That's how we think about it. And so making sure that we're in partnership with those executives so that we are kind of on monitoring, kind of on the ground, how are people, employees, how is this affecting them? What are they saying? How can we get ahead of some of these concerns? So it's really it takes an experienced team, and I feel like we've had a lot of success with it, but it's extremely strategic and can be very methodical and carefully laid out and before any change is ever implemented or executed. But it's fun. It's fun work when it works.
How often, or maybe less often, but do you find that you come across somebody that you really want to help, but then you just get to the point you're like, we can't. There's just nothing. They're not listening. They're not helping themselves. How often does that come into play?
Oh my goodness, that is such a good question. I I think the answer when we're talking with partners, because we can't do what we're doing alone, right? Especially like as I was talking about offering services and connecting them with nonprofits, right? These are partners that we need to have as part of our ecosystem so that we can refer. It does get tricky if we can't rely on them to follow through on some of these services, or if a candidate that we're working with has a bad experience with one of these partners. We do kind of have to walk that back and then pivot and kind of find another solution for them. That does happen. And you know what? Some nonprofits are extremely under-resourced. They have really small teams.
I can
and
imagine,
they can only do what they can do. And so we have to be very mindful. We definitely have to be very mindful of that. And we also, from the participant side, you know what? We do have some participants that, for whatever reason, maybe life gets in the way, or sometimes just mindset gets in the way, and they have a difficult time completing the course, or, finding their way to that next transition in life, because it's hard. It's tough.
And what is your follow through as far as, do you check along the way, like
Yes.
6 months, a year later, how are things going, and the feedback that you receive? And I'm sure that might help too, is if you have to, sway a certain process or, structures, or I'm sure there's just so much that just to ensure that this is
there's
successful.
so many variables, right? There's so many variables. And that case management support is something unique that we provide. We're seeing that not all organizations have it quite as tight as we do in terms of the way that we refer and the way we follow up. So the process might look something like this. If we're working with an individual and we know we need to help them get a driver's license, and we refer them to the organization that can help them do it, the case manager will give them a phone call, let them know this individual and his is his name, and he's coming tomorrow at this time. Will you be there? And then they'll say yes. And she's like, okay, I'll follow up and I'll find out how it went. And so that level of, attention on one individual is what we do. And it's why we can be successful. You have to. And the follow up, as you mentioned, after a week, there's a touch base every week. And once they exit the program, there's a touch base then the months following as well. Because we want to follow their progress. We want to see how well they're doing. I mean, really, we want to celebrate their success.
That's probably the biggest part, actually, is to see it follow through and see the end result of what you've done.
Awesome.
I'm sure it's definitely like their success is your success, right? And so it's probably definitely very rewarding for sure. So this is a question I like to ask. We ask a lot of women, but what advice would you give to women who wants to launch a purpose-driven venture? But feel like overwhelmed where to begin, kind of like how you felt in the beginning. You had mentioned, like, if it wasn't for my husband really being my cheerleader, like, what advice would you give to other women who are in the beginning stages and they have a really great idea, but they're just afraid to take that leap?
I think about this all the time. I think if you're hitting a place in your life where you feel like you understand more about what your purpose is in this world, what you're meant to do here, I think my question would be, if you get to the end of your life and you haven't done that, how is that going to feel when we get one life, right? My advice would be start. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the perfect time in your life. It's like, we'll have children once we are making X amount of money. And none of that ever is.
There's never a perfect time.
Never works out. Yeah. And side hustles are a thing. Use a side hustle, start somewhere, right? You don't have to get to a place where you have enough money in the bank to completely quit your corporate job. It doesn't have to look like that. It can look a much smaller effort on the side, but start somewhere is what I would say.
Yeah. Because you never know what tomorrow's going to bring, right?
Yes. And connect with a community. That is one thing along the way that I learned. When I was in isolation, everything seemed harder. But being in a community, especially a community of like-minded women, men and women, but I prefer
men and women,
a community of like-minded women entrepreneurs who kind of deal with some of the same challenges and can kind of relate to each other in their journey of entrepreneurship. It's been so life-changing for me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's, when you're having a bad day or a bad moment or a bad week and you talk to somebody else who, they get you through it, or it could be just one little piece of advice, and that could just be the one little thing that really, like, it just like, wow, that's what I needed. And then you just flourish.
Yeah. Or someone who can say, oh yes, I've been there. I know exactly what that feels like. That can be sometimes all anybody needs to hear.
Yeah. And I think too, keeping your circle, while there is such a community out there, but making sure that you're really surrounding yourself around those who are positive and supportive. I think the positivity, because you come across, at least I
I hear it quite a bit. People are just, negative and find reasons to complain. It's just like, I don't want to be around that. Like, I just don't want to be around that.
Yeah.
Same.
It's draining.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's much better to be around positive people.
Yes.
Like-minded. We feed each other with our energy, right?
Hands down. And not that, like, we all know, like, yeah, there's negative things in the world that happen, but just, when you're really trying to launch something or just, be your best self, being around people who are going to support that is everything.
Absolutely. There's something about that abundance mentality too that I've learned that, yes, there are challenges and it is hard work being a business owner. I mean, you ladies know this, but there is the abundance mindset is just sort of a different way of looking at the world, looking at opportunities, and not so much glass half empty, but glass, what if this, I mean, maybe it won't work, but what if it does? Whoa,
But what if it does? It could be life-changing.
yeah, and thinking about what that life looks like when your life has changed and what does that actually look like and feel like and visualizing that can be incredibly powerful. And when I first stepped into really diving into that it was about 18 months ago or 2 years ago, really understanding quantum physics and really understanding kind of the science and how I could apply that to my business at 10x.
It's like a whole
huge.
nother, it's just a game changer for sure.
Totally game changing.
Yeah.
So what does a typical day look like for you and how do you prioritize yourself? You obviously have a lot going on. You have children, family, husband. What does a typical day look like?
Well, I have to say, so the children are almost out now, and that is very different. So I'm entering this sort of empty nest stage that is very fun. I of course miss them terribly, of course, but that is,
but that's okay.
It's okay.
They can be missed.
Yeah.
We're only a phone call away.
Exactly. So there's more time in my day, I think there is than when they were little. So I'll be honest about that. There are a number of things I do to kind of build into my day just to manage my self-care. I mean, working out, Pilates is my thing. I love it. It's like passion, become a passion. That happens in the morning and in the afternoon. Sometimes I'll go to a bodywork professional. Sometimes I'll do some meditation. I might do some yoga. Definitely focus a lot on that mind body connection. It's very, very fascinating to me. I'm just so intrigued by it. And when I can, leverage it to help my business or improve my own mental health or improve my personal capacity to get through the day with more energy and attention to detail, I'm going to do it. And it's been really cool. It's something that new in my entrepreneurial journey that I wish I'd known a decade ago, but I didn't. But it's been great.
Well, I was going to add into that. I was going to interject there that it's so important, and I think it's so missed by people who really need it, but they are so busy giving themselves to others, whether it could be their work, it could be their spouse, it could be their children. And you're always, as women, we're putting ourselves in the back seat, right? And we're always trying to catch up. But now, like you just shared that, you're like, oh, I wish I did this back then, right? Like this is something that's really, it's so needed. And there's no shame in that. There's no shame in that. I think it should be prioritized.
And I learned the hard way at one point because I neglected my mental health for so many years that it was around 2022 when I hit an absolute breaking point. I really didn't know if I'd be able to come out of that with my business is intact. It was.
Can you share more about that with us? I would, if whatever you wanted to share.
Sure. It was a little bit of a perfect storm of a number of things in my life that happened, many of them out of my control, but they just happened to happen at the same time. I had a child who was going through a mental health crisis. I was actually working at a corporate job at the time. I took one because things with my business, cash flow was really difficult back about in 6 or 7 years ago. So I took a job and that was not a good experience. And I should have known because, when you're an entrepreneur at heart, it's really hard to go back.
It's really difficult. Yeah.
Really challenging.
But you feel like you have to do what you have to do, right?
That's where we were. I had to do what I had to do. And so there was a lot of stress there. There was stress in our marriage. There were a number of things at once within a 6-month period that I thought, what, like, I am not equipped to
Like
be
an
able
avalanche.
to, yes, I'm at a breaking point, and I really was at a breaking point. So it did take a lot of therapy. I also leaned really, like I mentioned, that mindset work, 'cause that's about when I started it. And
I was just
so,
going to ask that. Is that when you got
mm,
into meditation?
yes,
I'm a meditator.
You're big into that.
I'm
really,
I know
into
Michelle
yes,
loves that.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I love that. I love that. That's really when I started. I started doing more journaling. I went to an NLP practitioner where I did some hypnosis. I did EFT, so like a lot of tapping, body code,
Hypnosis.
Psych-K. I tried as much as I could. I thought, if it's out there, I'll try it. I was up for
Yeah.
anything. And I think a combination of a lot of those things together and really giving myself grace and those boundaries, Stacey, that you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
of how, we don't do that very well as women. I mean, we're givers,
No.
we're nurturers, and knowing when it's okay, and there doesn't have to be any shame in setting a boundary, even with people that you think you shouldn't do that, even close family. I mean,
It could
sometimes
be, yes, it could
It's
be
okay.
it's
anybody. It
okay.
could be your parents. It could be your
Yeah,
spouse, your children.
There's that old saying, like, no is a complete sentence, right?
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's all that's full clarity,
Yeah.
So
like,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that you do all of that because it is so incredibly important. And
Mhm.
it's, I went through a phase as well where it was a personal crisis that led me to all of that. Hypnosis. We actually had somebody on our
I was
podcast
just the last
that,
episode. Yeah.
the last episode that we
It
filmed.
launches today, actually.
It's going out
I
today?
believe today or tomorrow. Yeah.
And that's what she does. And I met her in a time when I had a personal crisis. So it was hypnosis, meditation, tapping, therapy. It was all these tools that I was gathering. And then I held on to what was working for me. So meditation is a big one.
Yes, for me
Journaling is
too.
probably second.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's amazing that you do that. I
I've
like to
learned
hear
so much about myself. It's funny when you
that.
give yourself some space, you
Yeah.
know, to meditate, to journal, just write down your thoughts. When you give yourself some space, I feel like I know myself a little better. It's so silly. It sounds so
Is it
silly when I
hard
say it.
for you ladies? Because I'll be honest with you, I've never done it, like the meditating.
Right.
And so I am always so curious because I know it's gotta be a wonderful thing, right? Brings you closer to your thoughts
Well,
and just
especially
clarify.
you, because you have 100 things going on at any given
Yeah,
time.
Stacey,
And
you're running pretty high
yes,
vibration.
I would love to like try it sometime, but I
it's
always think like how do you ladies find, like, for one, how long do you meditate for? And two, like, how do you clear your brain and your mindset? That would be the struggle, I think.
well, I mean, there's
I'm gonna try it though. I will try
yes,
it.
we talked about this and we talked to Rhea too.
Yes, when it's at the
Um,
hypnotherapy, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard, at least for me, it was to just sit down and be quiet and just
Like,
let
what do you
go of
think
like,
about when you're being quiet?
well,
Just
Well,
being
I
quiet?
think there's a misconception that when you meditate, you don't think about anything, like your mind
because
is
you
totally
do.
clear. Yeah,
And
but
that's
it's really
impossible.
right, because don't think about thinking, and then you're thinking about not thinking, and I mean we're always thinking about something. I think that it's more of an exercise in identifying your thoughts and just
Mhm.
bringing yourself back. So, because we are, I mean, especially when you first start, your mind is going to wander. You're going to go to those things. Okay, how much longer? What's the timer say? Like, how long do
This is
I
so
got 12
silly.
minutes of
Like
this.
I could be doing something else. Yeah.
right. But it's that practice of, okay, I recognize that I was just thinking that. I'm just going to let that
Mhm.
go, and I'm just going to start again. And that's really and it is kind of challenging, and it's in a good way though, because it's that clearing that mind allows you can be more centered. You're not in that fight or flight. You're giving yourself a breather. And I find that I'm so much more focused when I come out of it. I don't,
I would definitely feel like it's a sense of calmness for sure.
would you
Yes,
say,
but
Michelle?
for me, it's also, not only like the practice of sitting and meditating and allowing myself that personal time, but it does flow into other parts of my day where, something happens. I used to be a automatically take care of it, go into a spiral mode. I've got to do this. Like now I'm like, I might think about it for a minute.
Yeah. not be on like auto
I'll
reaction.
handle that. Like I feel like it helped me in that way to be more,
maybe more patient
more calm, not as reactionary. Yeah. Because when you're sitting there, at least for me, to allow myself that time, again, you do think of things and it's like, okay, push that off to the side. You might have some quiet and then it's, oh yeah, okay, push that off to the side. And it translates into my day-to-day very much.
Do you ever feel that through the meditation or just any kind of self, meditating or just whatever it is that anybody feels that they can really just bring calmness, that sometimes when you're thinking something is so priority and so important, but then maybe you do a meditation and at the end of the day, you're like, that is so not even important. I'm not going to think about that again. Like I was letting that literally take over my mind space at the moment. And then now it's just not, there's so many more priorities.
I even try, yes, absolutely. And I even try I might get upset about something in the moment. I mean, very rarely, right? Like we ladies very rarely.
Of course,
get
no,
mad in the day.
yeah,
I mean,
no, we would not. Everything is butterflies and rainbows.
I mean, an employee says something that's kind of disappointing or something a client maybe doesn't expresses like not really seeing the value in the team. Something happens and I can react. It's like that monkey brain, that's just reacting. And it's when I can remember to just take a beat, like do a quick meditation for 10 minutes before answering that email back. I mean, that makes a huge difference for me. Now, I'm not great about always doing it. Sometimes I'll admit, like I can react and it's never.
And you're like, oh good. Shoot, I probably should not have done that or said that, but I did.
Yes.
Self-reflection is good too.
Yeah,
for sure.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. I love that you do that. And again, we just did a podcast on this.
So this is really, so that's why we're really like drilling you on this. But I do think it's really important, for all of the listeners who are in that mindset where they're just like, oh gosh, I'm stressed. I have maybe little children running around and I'm working this side gig, but I really want to start my own company. And how do I do it? And so definitely these podcasts, this is why we're here.
Yeah. Well, and the mind is such a powerful thing. I mean, when you can tap into it for good and not and try to quiet some of those limiting beliefs, because that's the other thing. We as women, we're nurturers. We want to do it all. We're doing everything for everybody else and we put ourselves last. But then the other part of that is that we also say things to ourselves that are not true. And we say things to ourselves that are not helpful. And I think that's another way that some of these exercises and these various modalities can really help us rewire our subconscious mind so that our conscious and our subconscious mind are saying the same thing. Like, you got this, girl. You're going to kill it. You're amazing, and don't believe anything else. I mean, that's really the key to success too for women.
I see a trend a lot too with women who they will talk negative about themselves, but in a funny way, but they do it over and over. And it's really not, it's just their way of like, just being just not they're not confident in themselves. Right. And so they may just like, oh gosh, I'm so stupid. I forgot to do this. But then that becomes a habit. And then you're talking to yourself like that. And I just do not think it's just not healthy. It's not good. So whenever my mom does that a lot. My mom is always like, oh gosh, don't trust me. I can't do anything right. And then I'm just like, stop beating yourself up. Like, and so there's a way I think that we should, if we're thinking something, maybe just try to stop it there and not let it come out. Right.
Yeah. Because when it comes out, we hear it, right?
Yes. Then you hear it. And then it just becomes a habit. So I think that definitely if we can just give ourselves a little more grace and love, instead of always just giving it to everybody else, right? You can, there's enough for everybody, right? But I think definitely the positivity and and just talking to ourselves. And I'm guilty too. There's so many times I'm just like, oh gosh, I shouldn't have done that. And it's just you don't want to get in the habit of that.
Yeah. I mean,
how many times do that, right?
Like, oh yeah. How many times have I replayed a conversation a million times in my head being like, Oh, I said that. I shouldn't have said that. Or maybe if I'd said that differently, or I wonder how they took that. Oh, yes. We get in our heads.
Yes. You're like, oh gosh,
So
I hope that didn't sound as bad as
And
it
it,
like
but a
I
lot of
thought it
times we're
did.
harder on ourselves
Yeah,
anyway.
that's
Like
true.
it's not perceived as badly as we think, right?
true
So
most of the time. Yeah.
yes.
So moving on to some of the questions that we have. This I think is really always sweet, and I love hearing the responses from our guests when they have children. But what lessons do you hope that your children take away from watching you lead with purpose? And have you noticed any? Because you had mentioned
Yeah.
your children are now older. So are you seeing any lessons
Wait,
that maybe they've learned from you?
I hope so. I have boys. So I try to be intentional about them seeing me as an independent thinker, an independent, woman who's makes her own decisions about her career and her life, and not only makes a decision and then acts that, but also acts on it. And I wanted them to see that because it's important. I grew up in a very evangelical Christian home that happened to be very patriarchal, really. I mean, there were, as women, we were not, as young girls, we were not necessarily encouraged to do anything we wanted to do. It was, you could be a great teacher, or be a teacher. You'll be such a great teacher. And then
Right,
you can
right.
have
Like
summers off
status
and you can be
quo.
at home, right? You can be at home with the kids and like, kind of having that balance. And it was taught to me at a very early age that that would be my role. And I think that in hindsight, after all of this work that I've done on myself and looking back, I don't know that that is who I was born to be. And I am
Clearly
who I
not.
am, right? So I am who I am, and I really wanted my boys to see that I'm not afraid to be who I am, and I don't need to fit into somebody else's box. And I was hoping they would appreciate that, hoping they would respect that and be proud of me. There were a couple of moments, I would say, when I remember my older son was around 12 and the Me Too movement was happening around that time. There was a
Oh yeah.
lot of talk, and
Mm.
he was, I think, in the seventh grade, and it was being presented to them appropriately in the seventh grade at the topic. And I wanted to talk to him and felt I was, this is an issue for a reason. So a lot of women who are affected by this, and this is how. And it was a really challenging conversation. And it came, I realized that he himself was conflicted with what he thought my role should be. At times, they wanted me home more. Why aren't you just home more? I mean, Johnny's mom's home all the time. She goes
Right.
to PTA meetings at 8:30 in the morning because she doesn't work because she's always home with them because that's her job. And so there was a time when they desperately wanted me more. And the guilt was just, ay, ay, ay. I mean,
Yeah, that mom guilt is tough, but I think it's
yeah,
really important too, though, just to be who we are and live our best selves and be our best selves. And they see that in us, and I think that's what's you have the mom over here that's bringing cookies, baking cookies and being at all the PTO meetings, and that may be great for some, but that's not what's going to make you happy, right? And
mhm,
maybe that's not what you want to do or what I want to do. Like that's not my form of happiness. And
yeah,
now will I be at my all my children's events, they're sporting, or of course I'll be there with bells on, but all this extra stuff, I don't know. It's not something that I particularly enjoy because I enjoy working. I enjoy
yeah, and that's
this side of
okay.
it.
That's
Yeah. And
You do
that's
totally
have a
okay.
perfectly
balance
okay.
of
Yes.
Hmm.
you balance it out well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But again, I think it's the mom guilt, but I just think it's
yeah,
most
and well,
important for our kids to
I
see us
think
happy.
yes, and I think that now that they're older, they see it that way.
Yeah,
Now
of course.
they see, oh, and oh, I can see my mom being really successful at what she does and really knows what she's confident in herself in a way that I didn't used to be. And I think they do see that now.
Yeah,
But we did have to have some conversations about it.
I
And my
bet.
my youngest son actually is about to go to college. He's going to major in communications. It's so happened. And
Imagine
he's
that.
he's actually starting with us as a summer intern this year. So we're going to see how that goes. And this will
Oh,
be
exciting.
his first time we're really bringing one of the kids into the business. And I'm excited for him because I think he'll have some really cool opportunities that he I think, and I don't think he even knows what I do. So.
I was going to say, he's going to see mom as CEO now.
Right. It's going to be very different.
He's like, wow, my mom's a badass over there.
It'll be a big eye-opening experience for him, I'm sure.
Who has been your biggest supporter while founding and growing your business? Aside, I know you had mentioned your husband. Anybody else that?
I was fortunate to find a really amazing coach about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. And
was it a business coach that nobody you really knew? You were just looking for a business coach?
yeah, it was, I really feel like I kind of got lucky, but I did reach out to my community. It was sort of that you need recognizing when you need help, recognizing that it's okay if you don't build this thing on your own, that it's all right to ask someone else who's done it, to ask them how they did it. And that's what I was looking for. I was restarting my career again, and I'm not getting any younger, but I also so kind of feel like I don't have my whole life to build this thing. So I've got to be strategic and I be smart. And so I reached out to my network. I ended up finding this woman. She happens to be based in France, and we've have a great working relationship. She's had a chance now to really get to know me, my business, both businesses pretty well, and I attribute a lot of my success, especially the shift that I made around mindset, was really a lot of what she was teaching me about. So I would say that has been so helpful to know when you need help, not be afraid to reach out for it, know that you can always learn from other women who've gone before you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, take their advice, take their learnings and use them as your own. I mean, that would be something I definitely learned. And like I said before, the community, I mean, goodness, how many times? There's only so many people that speak this language, and you're a woman and you're dealing with issues where maybe you have to let an employee go and somebody that you feel really connected to, you've worked with them a long time. There's that emotional side. There's a lot of crying that we do together. There's a lot of
Yeah.
a lot of tears. But it's helpful when we've all done it and we can support each other.
Yeah, it makes a big difference.
It does.
I'm a big believer in like mentorship and yeah, speaking with, mentors and it's been a game changer for sure. Yeah. And somebody like you said, who really you can relates to you. They've been there, they've done it. Somebody who's done a lot more. And yeah, it's a safe space for sure. Yeah. Cause when you're talking to somebody else about it, they're like, oh, that's easy. If, you had mentioned if you had to let somebody go and it's just like, and if somebody has never had to do that, they're like, oh yeah, if they're not doing their job or this, just let them go. Who cares? It's different. It's, when you know that this person may have a family and they, and so for sure the mentorship or the business coaching, I feel is that hands down. I think that is so needed.
Definitely.
Yeah.
For sure.
When you're an
And there's a lot of really great coaches who just support women, And
I think it's one that you feel comfortable with too, because they're all over the place, right? You can look up, business coaching, but really like who can you really feel comfortable like sharing some of your secrets to, like maybe you're ashamed of in business, somebody that, is really you're going to feel that your confidentiality is being really, sworn in. And I think that's important.
It's hugely important.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up about the business coach for sure. I could talk all day about that because I just think I wish I found my mentor a lot sooner than what I did, but it's okay. Better late than never, right? So
late than never. I feel the same way though. I think about that too.
Because you said it's just been a couple of years ago, right? When you,
yeah.
It happens when it's supposed to, though.
That's right. When everything's meant to be is meant to be, right? But see, of course, us women, we don't think about it sooner because we think we can do it all. So of course, why would we think that? Why would we think we need a business coach? Nah, we can do it. So, all right. So for the fun part, we have a little game that we like to close our podcast with. It's a little rapid fire game. So it's some fun questions. So are we ready?
Okay. I am not prepared. So we'll see what happens.
That's the fun part. We don't want
these
you
are very easy.
Yes, these are easy, fun ones. Okay. I'll go first and you can.
Okay.
We'll take turns. All right. So what's one word your friends would use to describe you?
Independent.
I like it.
I like it. And that would be us too. I think
Yeah.
our friends would say that. I would say that about you.
Yeah. I'd say it about you too.
Morning person or night owl?
Morning, definitely.
Yeah, me too.
For sure. Yeah, my husband's the opposite.
That's funny. Yeah. It works well, right? Yin and yang there. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you a go-to coffee or tea order?
Coffee.
Me as well.
I felt a little guilt there. I felt like I should say tea, but that's not true.
No, you
do like a combo sometimes.
I was going to say
like a chai tea with espresso.
Tea. Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Look at her. She's got to put the twist into it.
Yeah. I mean, usually it's tea, but like lately it's been chai tea with espresso.
Yeah. That sounds fabulous, actually.
It's called a dirty chai. I totally suggest it. Yeah.
Is that a Starbucks thing or?
Yeah, it's in the other room right now.
Okay. Yeah. Well, the dirty chai.
The dirty chai.
All right.
So what book, show, or podcast are you absolutely loving right now?
Besides ours.
So books, I always have something I'm reading. I went to a conference, a purpose conference last week, and I found, I met Jennifer McCollum. In Her Own Voice is her book, and I'm reading this right now. I'm always fascinated by other women CEOs who are willing to tell their stories, right? So anyway,
it's fascinating.
So I picked this one up because I'm like, I know there's some parallels in here, and certainly there's little nuggets that I know I'm going to relate to. So I'm reading that. Podcast. Okay, I'm a true crime junkie, if I'm really honest. I should say it's like
gotta unwind.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure that I have, but just about any true crime podcast, I'm it's like
I feel like a lot of people are true crime.
The true crime. Yeah. That's what were you gonna say?
I also like a good scam. So if there's like a good con, a good scam, well,
like I gotcha moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those cautionary tales.
Got a little bit of everything going on here. All right. What is the best advice that you've ever received?
So I was told this is a couple years ago. There's a lot. I was given a lot of advice a couple years ago because I was going through a lot of stuff, as I mentioned. But my coach one day looked me in the eye, and I had asked a question that I thought I was going to get just a businessy answer. It was like a question about managing projects or priorities or something like that. I thought it was a common business question.
Sure.
And her answer was, Andrea, you need to take up more space in your life. And I was like, what? Did that have anything to do with the question that I asked? Was my first thought. And I sat with it for a while. I journaled on it for a while. And I realized that one sentence, like there was take up more space in your life. And like, Andrea, if you can take up more space in your life, you can find, your purpose, your life's mission, your retirement,
I'm such a big believer in that statement. I love it. Yes. Like don't hold back is really so important.
That's really good. That's good advice. You talk about journaling. I want to ask you this as a sidebar. Have you heard of that journal? I just was gifted this by a cousin. It's a journal book and it's just titled I Am. And you start every journal entry for 90 days with the prompt of I am.
Have you seen that at all? I love that. I love that. So it's like you begin every day with this affirmation
of I am, and it's kind of like positive thinking, but also they prompt you of start with that and then something you're grateful for. But if just those two words are so very powerful because it's the same prompt for 90 days.
So interesting. And also so self-reflective. Like how often are we told to like, how am I check in with myself right now?
Right.
I checked in with everybody else this morning. I got everybody up to school, got breakfast. But like, I am like, how am I? Yeah.
Right. So you've mentioned journaling a couple of times. So even though I interrupted our fun questions,
No, that is
I wanted to add that in there for you in case you'd never heard of it. So
I love
it's a
that.
great
Thank
little
you.
journal. Yes, you're welcome. So the question I have is, what's one thing you do to reset when life feels overwhelming?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned a lot of the different modalities I've tried, but yoga,
Right.
I would say yoga. I mean, I've tried to get in the studio at least once a day, at least once a day,
Oh my
sometimes
gosh.
twice a day.
Oh
Yeah.
geez. You are like an
It's
overachiever.
I think that when I went through this mental health crisis, it was such a wake up call for me because I don't ever want to get there again. I do not ever want to get there again. And so I have found that that's something that really helps center me. I can go in with an intention and I can come out and just feel like, oh, it almost, I come out and I almost feel like I just got a massage.
Like this is,
So great.
and it was exercise all in one.
Right. But it's also, a yoga studio is very different than a gym.
Oh yeah,
Because
it's very
you don't have
calming.
your phone in there.
Yeah,
You
you don't have the
you're
distractions.
right.
It's like a
Very
safe
Definitely.
place for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It's okay. Final one is finish the sentence. Success means what?
Success means I've left a legacy that my family will be proud of. Um, there's so much more I could say to that. I mean, there's so many things success means to me, but I
I
would say
love
my
that.
legacy at this point in my life is something I think about a lot.
Oh, that's great. And isn't it interesting too? Like you can finish that sentence. It would have maybe been different 5 years ago.
Yes.
Or I mean, and so now it's just, yeah,
I
that's a
think
perfect answer. My
I think that
legacy.
journey through entrepreneurship is such a exercise in self discovery more than I
It's a
ever
wild
thought.
ride.
It is a
Yeah.
wild ride. I just thought
It's
I'd
a
start a
wild.
business. And then all of the actual work I had to do on myself in order for that to be successful, I had completely underestimated. But it's been
and
amazing.
and you're doing that work on yourself while you still have to run a company. Like you can't just say, "Hey guys, I'm gonna take a couple weeks
Dip
off.
out. Yeah.
I'm gonna take I'm gonna take. Can I take my 2 weeks? I'll check in." And you can't. You just you have to keep going.
Yeah,
And so yeah, you have to find your outlets. But it's so worth it at the
definitely.
end, right?
Yes. Yeah. What do you ladies do when you need a break? Stacey, I'm because you don't do journaling or much meditation.
I don't do much yoga.
Did you just power through? You just like
A glass of
have an
wine.
energy
No,
bar?
no. I do a lot of. It's funny. I've mentioned this quite a bit, probably in podcasts. You probably know what I'm going to say, but it's. I love to just be alone, so I will just slide away into my room, into my. I just love to lay down. I just call myself a layer. I'm just going to go be a layer for a little bit, and I just like the quietness, and that really and honestly maybe I should try meditating because of this reason. I never shut it off. All I do is work and work and work. And I feel like as long as I'm able to, because that's what I enjoy is working and I'm not distracted by like other things. And I can like lay in my room and I can just, that's kind of where like, I'm like you, I'm like a visionary. Like I think of
Mhm.
things like we're, if I could launch 5 businesses right now and I could just snap my fingers and it would be like, I have so many ideas. So I think that's kind of what I do. And I know like, a lot of people go on vacations. They like to go on vacations and they, that's that would stress me out going on vacation. It's like if somebody's like, oh, put your phone down for a week. Don't even look at your emails. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I'd
easier
come
said
back
than
and I'd be
done.
a basket case. I don't know, but I
Mhm.
just love work. But again, I don't know. Like that's just I just like peace and quietness. And
I
I'm
think you
not
do a good job of balancing yourself out, though.
yeah.
Right.
I think I do.
Well,
I'm
and the fact
yeah.
that you love your work so much, I mean, that's like such a gift right there. I mean,
Well, I think that's a gift in itself, right? I mean,
hmm
yes, it's very challenging. It's it's a very purpose driven industry and field that I'm in, but and yes, it's not always a beautiful, it's not always great, and but at the end of the day, I love being a leader. I guess
hmm
I love and inspiring and empowering my people to be the best that they can be, and so that's kind of like a high for me. Sometimes I'm probably too much of a doer, right? I should probably sit back and let people do for me. That's probably my struggle. So, yeah. But I know that was a really boring answer because I don't have anything fun to say. Like,
don't say anything negative.
Oh yes, I can't say anything negative. Stacey, stop! Bite your own tongue. I just know it's not like anything. Stop. Like I go hit the gym for 2.5 hours and I sweat it out. I don't. I'm the opposite. I go lay down and I don't burn any calories.
Right.
But that's a form of meditation though too. I think you can call yourself a meditator. You're laying down.
There we go.
Kind of taking some quiet. I mean, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll go for a walk or I'll put on music. Just a few different things, but mostly like I can recognize if I need a break. I can just stop what I'm doing. And I'm very different than what the two of you have going on. I don't have children. I don't have a spouse. And I'm a real estate agent. So I mainly work by myself, right? Except for
what is that?
Yeah. I mean,
very different.
This woman, how many conversations do you think you have in a day? So she says she works by herself, right? So she's technically your own boss, right?
I don't have a team of people.
Right. Yeah. But the amount of people that you talk to on the daily, that would like my head would be spinning because I'm not like a social person. A lot of people think I am, and I'm not. But you say
that's business,
Yeah.
So is it different for you, Michelle? If it's business, it's not.
Well, it's just, I have people that I work with, but I don't have employees that I have to manage and oversee. But I have a team that works with me, attorneys, lenders.
Right. But are you an extrovert? Like, is that easy for you?
I'm an introverted extrovert.
I was gonna say,
you can put me in
just
a
like
room.
Your coffee and tea. She's a little bit of both.
Yes, like I'm a Gemini, so that explains all of it. But I can easily talk to people about topics that I understand, and I definitely like to socialize, but with small groups.
Mm-hmm.
But if it came to going to a party or staying home,
you're staying home.
I'm staying home. Yeah.
I think you're a really like a meaningful person. It's like you want to have conversations that are meaningful.
Yeah, it has to mean something to me right now. At this point in my life, if it's not, I don't like superficial conversation at all. Like,
agree.
No. Like, I hate when people, how's the weather? Or like, how are you doing? I want like real conversations.
Yeah, meaningful for sure. Yeah.
Has to have some depth to it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So yeah, this was so much fun, and it's so nice to see you again. Yes. How about, I have to say, you and I were at the award ceremony together, receiving our awards, and we're at the table, and then all of a sudden we found out last minute, like, what are they doing up there giving speeches? Remember that? We're like, we had to give a speech, like when they.
Oh yeah, and I was in my phone on my notes.
Yes, you're like trying to. I can't have like 3 minutes to prepare in front of all these.
Having to speak?
No, I had no idea. I thought it was a matter of like which award, and and we each got separate awards. We received separate awards, but I don't know though if that was like a planned thing. I think it just started trending while people were receiving their award, and then they thought, well, she's speaking, so we're going to let everybody, because I think that's why it went over for so long. That's what I'm thinking. So everybody just. Yeah. So I was going to try to get away with it until she was like, I would love for you to come up to the mic. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, you just wing it out. And then you look up and you see hundreds of people.
Yeah. Well, you did amazing. I mean, nobody ever would have thought it. That you
well, thank you. You did amazing as well. Well, you did great too. So, and, I was watching your husband watch you give your speech, and he is so in awe of you. It was so obvious. So Yeah. He was so proud. He was so proud of you. So,
love that.
Yeah. So kudos to you. That was
well,
amazing.
And you too. I mean, that was a really exciting event with so many women achieving so much in one room. It was really inspiring. It was cool. It was cool.
It makes me want to do a lot more of those and find more of those. I think it was definitely, it's such a great concept, and to celebrate one another. Really. So very well needed for sure. But yeah, so I'm so glad I was able to meet you.
Yes, I hope we keep in touch.
And here you are today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun. And this is this
has been great
talking about.
Yes, we'd love to have you again, So I know you had mentioned you have more ideas that you're hoping to launch. So once you get those launched, let's reconnect again. We'll have another podcast and talk about that.
Let's do it. I love that. Thank you, lady.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
It was really nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
It's been fun. All right.
for me.